there's two things I want to stop doing. One is starting sentences with so. Just saying so at the beginning of a sentence, I need to have the discipline to stop doing that. And the second thing is I need to stop doing YouTube videos that start with the word sometimes. So sometimes it can be useful to recap. It can be useful to just go, oh, okay, this is what we're talking about, just to refocus and to break it down as though you were talking to somebody who doesn't know what you're on about. To a beginner, break it down to a beginner. And it's good for us, it's good for me, it's good for you. If your head's buried in this and you go like along these logical paths, you're away from the trunk of the tree, you're going up the branch, you're in the twig, you're in the leaf, and it's like really, really ultra specific and you're using all the buzzwords, it gets a bit much. It's good to step back sometimes. I wrote completed the first chapter of the book yesterday. And my intent there was to kind of be like, how do we start as if nobody knows what it is we're talking about? How do you make this ultra available to anybody? And so, I'm sorry if I hit anything here. I'm using a new microphone at the moment. So if it's too loud or too whatever, just let me know and I can turn it up and down. So it's useful to sometimes to go, okay, what are we actually talking about here? And just go, okay, this is the thing. This is the key. CPTSR, you get hurt in a way that you can't escape from, and it goes on and on and on for a period of time, and you can't get away from it. It's usually coming from somebody who's got a position of authority in your life. Now, that might not mean that they're like your bank manager or your boss. If you love somebody, they're in a position of authority in your life. So you can't escape it. It comes from a trusted source. It goes on for a long period of time. The trusted source either is abusing you or engaging in such massive dereliction of their duties that it's causing you huge suffering. And you also need to be disempowered from saying anything. If you go back through time, through the sands of time, to the beginning of the Spartan Life Coach YouTube channel, you'll see me talking about Gregory Bateson's double bind theory of schizophrenia. The conditions that create complex post-traumatic stress response and his requisites for the double bind of his double bind theory of schizophrenia to play out are almost exactly the same. Not being able to say to the abuser or the abandoner, you are abusing me or abandoning me, is quite critical to this. The hurt runs deep. It's so powerful and so strong that it warps our sense of reality. You could say it bends time. At least it does for us. The explosion of suffering is so intense and so powerful that it has its own gravity. It's like a black hole, an infinitely dense black hole, an infinitely heavy black hole that draws things into it. The incident or incidents over time then function as a kind of black hole that we carry around. They warp time, they warp space, they warp perceptions, and we carry it. Is there somebody on here called Soyuz Flyer? Soyuz Flyer, where did you get your name from? I've just been looking at the Russian word Soyuz, just literally before this stream started. So how do we deal with that? And how do we deal with it now? What's different? What's changed? As far as I'm aware, there isn't really any major change in technology, but there are more people talking about it, and it's becoming more known. A friend of mine sent me a message where he screenshotted something from Reddit, and it wasn't about Reddit, but it was just a screen cap. There's a really, really active Reddit just about CPTSD. Right now it has on it, let's see, 198 people are online right now reading, looking for help. and it has 42.1 thousand members. It's something that people now are aware of. How do I think it should be dealt with? I think that we need to look at what CPTSR is and how it functions in order to deal with it. So you know where the machine, where the engine is breaking down, so that you can give it a fix. The Russian space capsule that brings astronauts to space is called Soyuz. It's in the Soviet national anthem. Don't ask me why I know it's in the Soviet national anthem. So stop saying so. Right, that's it. I'm not going to say so at the beginning of a sentence. The resolution of trauma seems to depend upon understanding. The person who has the trauma, who's carrying the trauma, it seems that nothing less than a kind of an evolution and elevation of their conscious understanding of what's happened to them and how that trauma is playing out in them. Nothing less than that seems to do the job. Like, you have to have that. What is it that people need to understand? It's not their fault that their body and brain is reacting defensively, biologically, based on survival instincts that are primal, that are evolutionary, that are evolutionarily bound. Some of them are millions of years old, which makes them very, very strong and very, very stupid. They're not nuanced. They're not clever. They can't distinguish between, a real threat, a saber-toothed tiger about to eat you, or your wife is shaming you, or your boss has dismissed you. Can't distinguish between the two. A threat is a threat. But it's not your fault, but you're carrying it. It is being carried. It has been imprinted into the central nervous system. And your central nervous system, in combination with your brain and your hormonal system, is continuing on this entrained pattern that's come down through neural conditioning. The trauma conditions you this way. If you're helpless and you can't escape and you can't say what you want, then, like it or not, that's conditioning you to think, feel, and act that way in the future. The greater an impression it makes on the neural pathways, the stronger that tendency is. Well, what causes a deeper impression? More pain, more suffering, or more intensity of experience, or psychedelics, or religious, mystic, revelatory experiences, or repetition. So how long were you stuck in it for? 30 years is more conditioning than 3 weeks. For sure. These are just the law, and this is biology as much as it is psychology. So knowing that, and knowing that it's in the body, and that the body has kind of been hijacked by trauma, that the brain has kind of been hijacked by trauma, that the hormonal system is now malfunctioning because it's hijacked by trauma. Do we approach the subject maybe with a little bit more compassion and a little bit more kindness and from a different perspective? I would hope so. I'd hope that we'd be able to go, okay, it's not really me. My environment is telling me there's something wrong with me, and I'm telling me there's something wrong with me. But actually, there isn't anything wrong with me. There's something that has happened in the past that has damaged the system. The system is now not functioning very well. This spacecraft is now not flying very well. The navigation system is off. The steering system is off. That which tells me what my altitude and attitude is in relation to Earth is way off. All the coordinates are off. But I'm still moving. I'm still going. I'm still functioning. And this can all be fixed. How do we do it? Well, I stick to the big three. For me, is emotional flashbacks. You've got to reduce your emotional flashbacks. You've got to reduce the shit storms of emotion from your past that make you feel things that you would have felt very intensely over and over again inside of the traumatic situation. Then you have your emotional literacy. Over time, under the pressure of trauma and pain, eventually you'll switch off from your emotions because they're not helping you. They're becoming a source of weakness in the situation, and you want to survive, so you switch them off. Okay, but that has long-term costs. If that becomes a pattern of operating in the world and a modality for operating with other people, there's a lot of long-term costs for that. Plus, we live in a culture that encourages emotional illiteracy and is intrinsically psychopathic and trauma bonded. So even if you've not experienced terrible things, this can happen. So reducing the emotional flashbacks, increasing the emotional literacy. And then the final thing is dealing with that nasty inner voice that we call the inner critic, that Freud called the superego, that is that part of the personality that's supposed to be the navigational system, that's supposed to tell you what your attitude and altitude is in relation to the earth. It's supposed to allow you to coordinate where you are and to fly right in the right directions, and it's damaged. That's what the superego does. The superego is there. It was said originally to help to make you have good judgment and to act in accordance with your morality and with the morality of the culture in which you lived. Probably better nowadays to say it makes you live, it causes you, directs you to live in accordance with your values. If you do something that's not in accordance with your values and your superego is functioning well, or at least half well, it's the superego that says, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. Or, hey, that thing that you're not doing over there, you should be doing that. That's the superego. The superego is good. The inner critic is bad, but the inner critic is only a damaged or masked superego. You need it. It's your friend. It's there to offer you guidance. You can communicate with the superego. These are usually parental or authority figure injunctions that are being kept inside the system. They're being remembered. They're being played back. They're called introjects. So if you have a nasty inner voice, it will be a mishmash of actual words that were said to you in childhood and the way certain experiences made you feel. It'll be both. So it'll be explicit. Somebody would say to you, you're a worthless piece of shit, and you'll play back, I'm a worthless piece of shit. And then people or a situation would make you feel like you were worthless, and you will play that back as, I know that I'm worthless. You don't remember the situation, of course, that caused you to feel that way in the first place. That doesn't come up, which is why you end up feeling crazy, because you can't, your brain isn't telling you, oh, you feel this way because of that. It doesn't give you the reference experience. It doesn't go that far. It just gives you the feeling. So the big three: emotional flashbacks, emotional literacy, and then healing the hijacked superego that we call the inner and outer critic. The outer critic, not spoken of as much in CPTSD, but very, very active and very prevalent in some people with CPTSD. Demanding, entitled, addicted to complaining, holds people to a ridiculously perfectionistic standard, and then finds them wanting for failing to meet that standard. It's a hyperactive outer critic. One is looking for ways to tear others down. The inner critic, it tears us down. We are tearing ourselves down. A high-functioning superego is like having a guiding, loving father on board of the spacecraft, or a guiding, loving, nurturing mother on board the spacecraft. Those of us who are blessed to have a guiding, loving, present father will walk around with the source code running inside of us. Everything is going to be okay. Those of us who are blessed with a present, loving mother who is nurturing will walk around with the source code inside of us. I am intrinsically lovable just as I am. When they are either absent or negligent or indeed abusive, those necessary pieces of source code are never installed, and the website doesn't quite load properly, which is what a lot of us have with CPTSR. You know, the website just isn't quite loading properly. Bits of it are. It's semi-functional. It'll work, but it's a bit of a mess. So the ways in which we get into that are interesting, but I won't cover that in this video. I just wanted to answer a question from Reddit. I just picked this as I was reading through the questions before, and then I'll answer your questions, guys. You can go if you just look up Reddit CPTSD. Reddit. Zenobile posts. Does anyone else have a constant voice in their head? He posted this, or she posted this 9 hours ago. Often in the back of my head, although sometimes I speak to him out loud in private. Sometimes he's self-critical, but sometimes he's soothing. I refer to him as you. So he inside of his head calls this voice you and not me. And I can't get rid of him. Sometimes it genuinely feels like I'm talking to another person, even though I know I'm not deep down. Well, based on what I just told you, you guys would be able to help him with that. That's superego. That's semi-functional. Sometimes it's self-critical and sometimes it's soothing. The superego can also be a source of comfort and soothing. The superego can also step in and say, hey, everything's okay. You're doing okay. What you want is okay. What you are is okay. You're doing okay, kid. And it can be supportive and soothing like that. And it should be. We should aim for that. So stop saying so. Some of the answers, because when people are asked questions, they're being supportive, they want to give an answer. Here's one of the answers. A better way to see this is as a process. The voice is not you, but if you pay more attention to it, you'll hear it comment on many things throughout the day. I like this, I don't like this, blah, blah, blah. If you practice mindfulness and meditation, you'll start to recognize this process more and more. It's crazy how we pay attention to this and give it importance. It goes even further because in addition to voices, we get flashes of images and sounds. This happens throughout the entire day. There are a lot of people who are not aware of this. Learn to watch this and pay attention and see experiences, processes. This really helps to ease the suffering, which is not bad advice, not bad at all. Become aware of your own thoughts, become mindful, become meditative. Good advice, right? But does it help the person actually get a concrete grasp of what the problem is so that they can get a concrete grasp on developing a solution, putting it into place, having a timeline and going, okay, within 3 months, I want this to be less. I want this situation to be better. And the answer is no. This is not a criticism, but a lot of the information that's out there comes in at this level. And we need to start dealing in more definitive models. Somebody said to me yesterday they found it triggering that I was talking about CPTSD in such a confident way. They found that upsetting. And my attitude to this is, well, do we want people to get better or not? Do we want people to get on with their lives or not? Is this a t-shirt to be worn? I have CPTSD. Oh, I have ingrowing toenails. Oh, I have fucking wheat intolerance. Or is this something that we want to get out of the way so we can get on with the rest of our lives? It's a simple question and one that each and every one of us needs to answer. Do you want to belong in a community? That's great. Belonging in a community is great. But you don't want to be in the CPTSD community. You don't want that to be a bonding thing. You want your love of art or poetry or tennis or those weird little dogs whose bellies rub on the ground. That's what you want to be in a community of. You don't want to bond with people over an identity of hurt. It's not good. It's not dignified. It's beneath human dignity. It's great that people are being more open with this. It's great that the awareness is rising up. I have seen what I would say I suspect is posturing of mental health issues as a means of being timely with the zeitgeist of the moment. Dare I say it, even cool. Not on Reddit, by the way. Nothing to do with Reddit. I didn't show you a Reddit thread and then go to this. Like, there's no connection there. There's no connection there. I haven't read it enough. I literally just opened it now. But I have used forums since 2004, and I know that is a thing that can happen. but I'm not saying it's happening there. Online communities generally tends to foster that kind of thing because you have lonely people who are going on there every day and they're drawing their significance from it. They're drawing their sense of self from being online and talking about this problem. I look at some online communities, in fact, all online communities, whenever there's a problem, it's self-protection, it's martial arts or, whatever it is, the amount of time that is spent looking for the solution online versus the amount of time that is actually working towards a solution in the real world, that's something that people need to answer for. If you're spending more than 12 hours per week talking online and looking online about a problem that you have and that you share with other people, you're probably bending the limits of the definition of useful healing behavior. There's other things that you could do that would allow you to get to the point much, much faster. I'm now going to take questions. Begin asking me questions immediately. Don't get intimidated. What do you think about reparenting your inner child to create new healthy childhood narratives? I don't know. I don't really tend to use the term inner child now as much as I used to. I used to write about the inner child, and I don't know how useful a model it is. And it is just a model because you're not a child anymore. You're an adult, and so am I. But I had a childhood, and there are parts of me that are childlike because they've not grown, because I'm not emotionally matured yet. Sure. So I don't know about the inner child concept. Rewriting childhood narratives. If it helps you in very clear, very restricted, very disciplined, very boundaried ways, it would be an interesting experiment. I have seen therapeutic work that uses that. I read a book about therapeutic work that specifically used that as a tool. I did not find myself drawn to it. It did not resonate with me. Your past is your past, and the truth matters, and the truth is okay. No matter what. No matter what it was, no matter how awful it was, it's okay. It's okay. Rewriting narratives of the past is probably not something that I would, me personally, it wouldn't work for me, and I couldn't get excited about doing that with clients. I'd like them to accept it, process the emotions from there, and move forward with their lives and let the past go where it belongs. Oh dear. Let me see. Sean says, the truth helps set you free. The understanding helped my recovery. Measure Twice says, yes, mindfulness is helpful, but not a full solution. Charlotte Hancock says, hi, Richie. I care about me more and more. Bob to me, 2002. Oh, I can put these on the screen. Parts therapy is good for fragmentation or internal systems, as it's sometimes called. Mariana Menendez says, I'm afraid that doesn't depend that much on what anyone says, but on people's unconscious needs. That is very true. Deborah says, I disagree, Richard. Knowledge should be shared. I'm probably out of timing with what you were talking about there. Sorry about that. What do you do? What do I do when the abuser threatens self-harm when I assert my boundary? Presumably you're talking about an adult. So what an adult does with their body is their business. What you do with your body is your business. It sounds like somebody is trying to offset their responsibilities onto your shoulders, at which point I would be looking for the door myself. Rainy days. I go for men that are wrong for me. I try to go for inners that would be good for me, but I lose interest. What do I need to work on to find the bad ones less attractive? Please help. Lol. Stop record time. You've got to do the work, man. You've got to develop your emotional literacy. That'll help you to mature. It'll also clean up your intuition, and you've got to reduce the emotional flashbacks. I said this in a video. Oh, I think it was on Instagram. I didn't do it on YouTube. Like, we're living in a culture that is trying to encourage us to remain in perpetual adolescence. And I don't think you can have both. I don't think we get to heal and move on as an adolescent. I think you've got to be an adult. You know, you said, I find the bad ones so attractive. Please help, lol. Yeah, okay. So bad boys are sexy. Bad boys are cute. Bad girls are sexy. Bad girls are cute. La la, blah, blah. So one day I'll be fucking dead. You know, what do you want? What do you want, man? Rainy days. Life is short. If you want that, then just go for it. Just, if you want bad boys and that's sexy and that's hot, then fucking get in there. Great. So I'm the same way. But I would say, okay, if in my head, I just go, okay, stop boring everybody with the details. If that's what you want to do, dude, this is me to me. Go ahead. Go ahead. Like, you haven't been around that roundabout before. Do it, but don't complain. And then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll leave it then. S. Lay says, is it normal to lose ground on emotional triggers once processed, or have they not truly been addressed? I don't know what work you've done, but generally speaking, the more superficial the work is, then yes, the more likely there is a backsliding. So if we use like a cheeky, quick little tool or technique, we can get good results, but you're not really dealing with the core issues. Emotional literacy is the only way to do that, because you've got to actually acknowledge all of the feelings around the issue, and that could create grieving for that which has already been lost and cannot be regained because time moves in one direction. If you can accept that and you can grieve, then you can heal and move past it. If you can't accept that the time has already gone and that you've lost what you've lost, and you can't grieve for that in an organic and healthy way, then yeah, it's you will backslide. Soyuz. Horosho Soyuz. I feel that it is important to implement self-oriented action and not put an abuser in the center of your healing. If you get boundaries and self-worth right, you will deal better with abusers. 100% true. 100% true. Davai. But it's hard. Like, I know it's hard. Abusers trigger every codependent, fawning response in us that we have. And they make themselves the center of our universe through being abusive, through the roller coaster, through making things exciting. It's trauma bonding. It's really, really good. Then it's really, really bad. And, you know, so they make themselves center stage. But the more we take the locus of control back to our own lives, the better it is. Rainy days. I'm attracted to emotionally unavailable men. How do I make myself more attracted to the available ones? See the answer I gave you earlier. Toxic shame is what my therapist says is basically the problem. It's a big part of the problem. It's a big part of the problem, but it's not, he or she is not describing the engine parts. Toxic shame might be the fume that comes off a bad engine that's running on the wrong fuel or something, but they're not describing the parts. Toxic shame is really only one element of the CPTSD puzzle, which is emotional flashbacks. Of the big three, toxic shame really is only emotional flashbacks. It's huge though. It's so awful, because toxic shame can freeze the emotional literacy. And then what does the superego do? The superego induces toxic shame, which then freezes the emotional literacy and creates more emotional flashbacks. So it's a huge part of the problem, but they're not. You've got to describe the engine parts in order to give people a chance to solve things. Rainy Days says, lol, I'm trying to. I know, dude. I know. I think listen, I'm not, this is not to you, Rainy Days. This is to everybody who has this problem. Like, it's a philosophical problem, really. And it, you know, I know it's kind of boring and cliche. It's a cultural problem. It is, though. It is a cultural problem. We can't have everything we want all the time. Newsflash. So you're not going to get like everything that you could, every constellation of desire you've ever had for a man as a heterosexual woman in one man. You're just not. You're just not. It's not, because, you know, one man can't be every man. One man can only be one man. So then you're restricted. So it's a philosophical issue, and it relates to adulthood and what you really want. And this is a big part of CPTSR because we're infantilized. The trauma has infantilized us. Chat to people with CPTSR. Look at me, like my behavior. I'm nearly 42 years old, but I act like, you know, a fucking teenager sometimes. And okay, it's funny and it's fun and I'm enjoying life and I'm having a good time. But I can't deny that there's an element of emotional immaturity to all that. Why? Well, because, you know, those parts of me that were not given the chance to develop still haven't developed yet. Dealing with emotional flashbacks is fairly simple and fairly quick, like on the scale of things, 3 to 4 months. Emotional literacy and then developing a philosophy that takes us away from passivity to being assertive and self-interested takes a lot longer. But that is critical to moving forward with CPTSR. I appreciate your unique sense of humor, perfect for teaching this messy subject. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Carls says, that's right. That's very cool of you, sir. Thank you. Can I ask a question about one of the exercises in the course here? Go ahead. Why not? Let's do that. Will emotional literacy work help cure physical self-neglect, such as not wanting to comb hair, clean house, car? Yes, but you've got to do the superego work as well, because perfectionism and procrastination go hand in hand, and that's the realm of the superego. So if you have a very pronounced inner critic, their expectation. So if I say to you, go comb your hair, you get a heavy feeling like, oh, I don't want to comb my hair because I won't do it. So it'll be like, okay, just do it a little bit. I can't clean my house because it won't be spotless. No, don't make it spotless. Give it a 7 out of 10. Give me a 6 to 7 out of 10. Do it and listen to a podcast and see if you can enjoy doing it. Just give me a. So it's tough. It's moving into that realm, but the key issue is emotional literacy, but also the superego work. Absolutely. Soyuz, Tavarish, do you think religion is important to create a moral philosophy, or is that something you can find individually within yourself? No, you don't need religion to create a moral philosophy. Absolutely not. You can create it within yourself. Start writing. Ask yourself the question, what is good? Write the answer down. What is bad? Write the answer down. How do I think a person should live? Write the answer down. What should a loving relationship look like? Write the answer down. And only do it from the point of view of what you feel is true for you philosophically today. What is the point of life? Write the answer down. Then make it short-ish. Come again, write tomorrow. The day after that, write again. And watch as your philosophy changes so rapidly. In the space of a week, what you wrote on day 1 will not look like what you had on day 7. Your philosophy is growing. Your philosophy is becoming more nuanced. Your philosophy is developing real teeth, real claws. You get good at this over time, and you go, there's a lot of pitfalls in philosophy that you don't see at first, but you get caught out with that eventually over time you start to see coming. So yeah, that'll help. James from Boston. James Boston says, thank you for all your help on MPD. It's helped me move on and become more self-aware. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time and for your attention. Found out this weekend that my ex had told my BFF 25 years ago to stay away from me. How sadly affirming all this self-help work has been. Thank you for your continued reminder to do the work. You're very welcome. My critic is annoying me. It is annoying. Says, sorry, Wendy K. My critic is annoying me. It is intrinsically an annoying little fucker. I was calling it Gollum for a while, like Lord of the Rings, and then I just got rid of that. I was just like, oh, okay, I'm not going to say that because it's not a tiny little creature. It's in Lord of the Rings, the superego is both Gollum, but it's also Sauron, the Eye of Sauron. So Sauron has created Gollum. Gollum and Sauron work together. So it's not a tiny little creature, a little addict. It can be like that, but can also be this huge, terrifying fire eye that sees all and is in the sky and is all powerful. So yeah, no, it is annoying. Immature or young at heart? Yes, I'm young at heart, but also I do think there is some. There's a lot. There's no point being too self-critical. Like, am I doing better now than I was years ago? Yes, absolutely. Just 4 years ago, 5 years ago, definitely. I was really struggling with depression and all kinds of issues. Am I happier now? God, yes. Does the world look better for me? Yes, absolutely. I would just acknowledge, though, that there are areas of my life in which I think I would, had I had a different experience growing up, I would be in a different place. Right. So, who's the person who's going to ask me a question about the course? Whoa. And I said, yes, you can. And now I've lost you. All I see is like a big list of questions. Manuela B asks, can we compare religion versus your own moral philosophy to watching a channel and doing your courses and being part of a community which contributes to the understanding of difficult topics? You should be able to develop both. You know, I don't take people's religion away from them. I never have. I've never said to anybody, don't believe anymore. Don't pray anymore. Never, never have, never would. Anybody who's religious who did get coaching with me when I used to do it, I would always tell people to pray more. If you believe, then pray. I'm sure the world would be a better place if even atheists prayed. So, but I don't think faith and belief in a higher power, or as I was saying the other day, like reverence for nature, reverence for our place in the universe is critical to being alive, but it's not critical to a moral philosophy. You can develop a moral philosophy without that. And a moral philosophy will protect you where religion and spirituality won't. Religion and spirituality give you a sense of purpose, a place in the world, but it's your moral philosophy that allows you to go, this person's acting like a cock jockey, right? Off they fuck. It's quite, you need that level of judgment to be able to sternly say, right, see you, because you did this, this, and this, you're leaving now. And people who don't have that moral philosophy are the ones who get stuck in abusive relationships, who get into them and then, won't leave them. We're also the ones who end up going, I really like bad girls, or I really like bad boys, because your moral philosophy is off. And you go, okay, well, I don't know, say you think drugs are terrible, but the guy's really hot. And you're like, I hate drugs, I hate drugs, I hate drugs. And then you're with this really hot guy who's into cocaine. And your girlfriends go, I thought you hated drugs. And you're like, I do. And he's trying to get better. Da, 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 da. And actually all it is that you think he's really sexy. If you have a strong internal moral philosophy, you're not posturing moral philosophy, you're doing it for you, then your moral philosophy would allow you to have the critical thinking to go, okay, what am I doing here? I've said I don't like drugs. This guy abuses drugs. What am I doing? Brain goes, he's got a really nice ass. He's got such amazing abs. He's so whatever. So you go, okay, well, what am I going to do then? Am I going to continue because of this to defy my own value system? You can. I'm not a priest. I'm not like, don't do that. Do whatever you want. Just don't come complaining to me when it all goes horribly wrong. Like you're not friends of mine, but even if you were, and you can ask friends of mine, I'm brutal. I'm absolutely brutal because I know people who've done this, and I'll sit with them and I'll have a pint with them and I'll make them laugh and I'll have a chat with them. But I'm not going, oh yes, poor you. I'll be like, you're a fucking idiot, aren't you? Look at me. Aren't you a fucking idiot? Yes. Why are you a fucking idiot? Because I had an affair with a married man. Right. Okay. Was that the right thing to do? No, that's not the point. He said he loved me. I thought he'd leave as a... Was it the right thing to do? Is it okay? Like if we all, including me, start shagging married men, like what happens? What happens if we all do that? What happens if I exclusively am only going to pursue married women? I'm only going to pursue women who are in relation and have kids. That's it. Nobody else. What happens? What is wrong? What is right? What is moral action? What is immoral action? What is order? What is chaos? I can do it. Of course I can do it. There's loads of really nice looking, if I go back to the Wirral, nice looking, what are they? The yummy mummies of the Wirral. Absolutely. I'm sure I could. But what does it do? What am I creating? And is that my only choice? Like what's the point? So moral philosophy keeps us out of trouble. Religion can do, but I prefer to keep religion and spirituality over in this place. Moral philosophy is like, religion and spirituality to me functions better when it's about reverence and humility and knowing our place in the universe. It's uncomfortable for me when moral philosophy gets bound with religion, in the same way I'm very uncomfortable with church and state binding or banking and churches binding. I'm not comfortable with that. I think you stay in your lane, you just keep it boundaried. So yeah, you can develop a moral philosophy by talking to people, but it's your moral philosophy. So don't externalize the locus of control out to a community. It's yours. It's between you and you. Mandy says, I'm a yummy mummy. Good for you, Mandy. Mariana Menendez says, bye. Hasta luego. How do you feel? Oops. How do you forgive and release the anger? I try, but I wake up the next day angry and anxious and depressed again. You must work on your emotional flashbacks and you must develop your emotional literacy. You are not processing the anger. You're feeling it, but you're not acknowledging it. So you're probably in a battle with it. You're probably in a push-pull relationship. You're like, get away, get away, get away. Anger's ugly. Anger's horrible. I don't like it. And then it gets hold of you. And then you're like, fucking hell, no, I'm really hungry. Whereas if you can, instead of pushing it back when it comes, if you can open arm it and go, what do you want? What is it? Talk to me directly, anger. What is your message? What is your message, anger? Tell me directly right now, to my face. Tell me. You need to defend yourself against that because that is like this and that. It's a protection. It's a protection instinct. What is it? What do you want? Okay, I will do that. I need you to fuck off now, anger, because it's not appropriate for me to be walking around throwing adult temper tantrums and being all bitter and moody and grumpy with people. That's how I was a rageaholic, total rageaholic. Punching cars, throwing phones. In my younger years, when I was working in the nightclub security industry, I was punching humans. There's only so long of that you can do before another bigger human comes along and crushes your skull, or the police put you in a room with a bunch of other men and stay in there for 7 years. So, yeah, you got to process that. Janina says moral, ethic, religion, justice, behavior control. Unfortunately, historically, we do have evidence of that, and that's not good. That's not good. Do you think our culture will self-destruct? Says Matt, without a major shift in perspective. Your icon, I saw it as a turtle. I was like, that's a turtle swimming in the water. And I was going to call you Matt the Turtle, and I see it's you snowboarding. It looked like, I was like, that's a turtle. Our culture is self-destructing. It's already begun. It began, I would say, 2008. It's already started to break away from itself. So, yeah, it's only a question of how bad it gets. Measure twice says a moral philosophy similar to personal boundaries or a personal checklist of acceptable behaviors and standards of integrity keeps your life's car on the road rather than veering off a cliff. Very true. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Robin. I don't like open loops that don't get closed. A task in the course is to make a list on how I will prioritize my needs. I don't know how to do the task. It's like I just don't understand the question. Can you explain the exercise further, please? There is a specific solution to this problem, and I can't remember it. What do we do with somebody who doesn't know what they want and doesn't know how to want? I think one of the solutions that I looked at, I've not coached people for a while, you see. So it's hard to remember. I think one of the solutions that was looked at was when you have small preferences, like whether you prefer vanilla or chocolate ice cream, you're exercising your will, you're exercising your preferences, you're exercising your presence. So if you raised in an environment where you were not allowed to be, if you're not allowed to be and you don't have permission to be, then you definitely don't have permission to want or to need. I can't remember, mate, but it'll come to me probably 2 minutes after I've stopped the live stream. So I'll do another video on it. It will be called how to know how to want things. There is a solution. I mean, the emotional literacy work does help with that, because not wanting stuff, not knowing how to need things is like a manifestation of self-abandonment. So the emotional literacy course is a lot of self-acceptance and a lot of self-acknowledgement. We just take self-acceptance, self-acknowledgement and go, take a load of these. You can't have too much of that. And that helps. That really, really helps. But let me get back to you, because there is a different solution. I just can't remember it. Jenny says the emotional literacy really works. Thank you, Jenny. Manuela, that's interesting. So a moral philosophy is an internalized morality. Yes. I always thought religion should combine well with morality to be a religion, but maybe I don't see it as much as a rigid structure. It's a whole other topic. There are many ways of doing religion. So we have an understanding in the Judeo-Christian tradition of what religion is, but it wasn't that way in other cultures and in the past. I mean, our nearest entry point would probably be, what do you think a shaman is in a tribe? That's usually how religion was. It's like we have our daily tasks that we need to do in the tribe. Rebuild the huts, you got to skin the game, you've got to pluck the berries, you've got to hunt, you've got to clean stuff. That's all protection of this. And you do that like all the time that you're not sleeping. That's what you do. The shaman, wise woman or wise man, is absolved of those duties, and they're to stay in the spirit world, and they're to bring the tribe back to recollection of who they are. You're not the material. Well, I just did. If I'm not material, why did I just spend 12 hours doing this really boring, repetitive work? Because you need food in order to not die of starvation, though you can, of course, choose to die of starvation. But even though you just did that and you toiled and you labored, you're not that. That's the shaman's job. That to me is religion. The religion that we're familiar with is real estate, is banking, is government, is royalty. It even ties in with the nobility. And all of those things, by the way, I say banking and you go, I know what banking is. It's like, that's not what banking always was. There's been many permutations of banking, many permutations of government, many permutations of royalty and nobility. There's not just, but we think of it as being one thing. We think of it as our thing. So yeah, it's an interesting subject. But to me, religion, remember, as I said the other night, to me, religion is individual. It's individual. It's not, you can't, if you have a collective religion, what you have is dogma, because I don't know what you need. I don't know what you're a different human to me. So therefore, if we believe in a spiritual world, you're a different spirit to me. Our spirits are not the same. And thank God that we're not the same. How boring that would be. So your thing is going to be different to my thing. The people who come to my channel who resonate with me, we have a similar thing. You're probably on a similar wavelength to me, but not the same. Not the same. So don't get pulled. Do what you like. If you think Egyptology is cool, if you think Native American shamanism is cool, or paganism, neo-paganism, Germanic religion, Scandinavian, whatever you're drawn to, let that be the guide. But don't get lost in form. Don't get lost in the world of form and materials and illusion. Remember, it's all just spirit. Does the emotional literacy exercise eventually help with nightmares, or can I do the exercise in my dreams? Don't do the exercise in your dreams. Do it in real life. It could help with nightmares, but I wouldn't make that promise because it's not designed for that. You will definitely become more emotionally re-regulated, and it will help you to process trauma for sure. But whether it'll stop nightmares, I honestly couldn't say. Stroman asks, is the snowboard made of turtles? You know about the story that says, Matt says, I have a turtle tattoo on my back. See, when you came through, Matt, we think this is the world of materialism because it's just a stupid YouTube live. But I could see your spirit animal when you came through, dude. I could see that shit. That's weird, man. That's weird. Stroman says, is the snowboard made of turtles? You know the story where they say, what's underneath? They ask the wise man, what's underneath the world? And he says, well, the world rests on a turtle's back, and the turtle carries the world. And they say, well, who carries the turtle? Well, another turtle, a bigger turtle. And who carries that turtle? And then the wise man says, it's just turtles all the way down. I have nightmares too. How it stopped them? I'm not saying that it will. If it did, it would be because your nightmare. With dream psychology, what you'll find is if you're stuck on a problem, you'll have a recurring dream on the problem. If the dream is upsetting, then the problem is probably traumatic, anger-inducing, or fear-inducing. So when we process our emotions and change our approach authentic, real change in life, then the nightmares will stop because we'll move forward. The dreams are a message. They're like emotions. They're messengers. Look up the meaning of your dream. That might help you. Go to Tony Crisp is his name. You can Google that. Google is a very well-known search engine. You open a new tab, you go into Google, you look at Tony Crisp dream analysis, or Dream Hawk, as in the predatory bird that flies in the sky. And whatever elements of your dream that you can remember, you put that in there and the symbols will be analyzed for you. It's very good. Very, very good. Wendy K says, can you see my future? In your future, you'll be looking at a Scouse man in a vest in a room talk to you. Wow. CK says, Richard's got another sense, maybe. Aye. What course is the question referring to? Robin, could you do me a favour, mate, and just tell Reese what course that was? Because I can't remember. Where you prioritise your needs. It's recent. It's not an old course. I've got a feeling I developed that course at the Liverpool Science Park. Because I remember the whiteboard, but I can't. Robin, help me out. Oh, I'm way behind. Let me catch up with you guys. Janina Humphrey says, elephants carry the turtle. So true. So true. I've seen those elements. Elephants. Oh, healing the superego. Okay. All right. It was healing the superego. I knew I had it on that whiteboard and there was a white wall behind it. So I knew it was Liverpool Science Park. It was funny. There was a guy who I was doing phone coaching with, and he's a famous, now a world famous athlete. And he called me up and we spoke, and I did a phone coaching session with him. And then 2 months later, he called me again, but I was in a different country, in a different hotel. I was saying to him, just wait a second, mate. I need to remember the hotel I was in. And he was like, why do you need to remember that? And I was like, because when you were talking to me, I drew like a mind map on the wall, and I remember but I can't remember the hotel. So if I can remember the hotel, I can remember where I mapped everything, but I can't, I had to remember, I had to go into my emails to find the hotel in order to remember everything. Okay. So the Heal the Superego course, it's got a shit name. It's a real shame that I named it that. It's a dreadful name, but it's actually a really good course. If you're looking to deal with CPTSR, that course deals with the big three. It deals with emotional flashbacks, emotional literacy, and bringing the superego back online and switching the inner critic off. I highly recommend it. It's a good course, and it's very procedural. It's 30 days. You go step by step. You have a preparation phase. There's no escape. There's no messing around. You can't ADHD the course. You can't be like, oh, I did, I'll finish. You got to be like, okay, this is what I'm doing today. And then you just stick with it. So yeah, Heal the Superego course is good. Shannon says it was also in Heal the Superego. Yeah. Will the Stop Emotional Flashbacks course help with all kinds of flashbacks? I still have them of my stillbirth over 2 years ago. No, I don't think so. I wouldn't make that promise. I mean, it's a free course. Just try it and see what happens. And if it helps, please let me know. But you would be the first piece of anecdotal evidence that I've ever had that reducing emotional flashbacks stops straight PTSD flashbacks, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic flashbacks. So I'd be fascinated. I mean, it would be helpful to me to know that. It would make sense if they did, if through doing the emotional literacy, you were brought to a place where you felt like you could grieve and feel in your own way, in your own time, just enough that you can deal with the shock, the grief, everything that went with that. Feel it, acknowledge it, process it. If the flashbacks go away, that would be great, and I would hope that they would. But I wouldn't sit here and go, "Oh yeah, they're going to do that." Anna Louisa, are you choosing questions, or is this like a lottery? I don't know, Anna. I have like a bunch of people asking me questions on the right of my visual field, and then I do my best to give the best answers I can that I think are going to help as many people as I can. So if somebody says my pet hamster's claws are dirty. How do I clean them? I skim that. Hope that helps. Nikki says, I received great wisdom from Honu as we snorkeled with Narcex. That sounds like a delivery service. Narcex. Honu looked at me with the look of, what are you doing with the idiot with the camera? Lol. Who's Honu? Matt says, turtles all the way down. Love it. Now when people say to you like, oh, you have a tattoo, what does your tattoo mean? You'll be like, oh, it's about turtles all the way down and the structure of reality. That's why I got the turtle tattoo. Like I've seen people talk about their tattoos, and to me it's like art. Like I never did. I didn't have the skill for it, but I had friends who did art. Like I used to hang around an art college called Withens Lane in Wallasey with my mates. We were all metalheads, and when exam time came, I would go to their exhibitions, whatever you call it. Like at the end of the year, you show your artwork, and I realized they were being graded on what they said about what they did, as well as what they did. So I was like, this is really weird. This is like an exercise in English literature, really, because like the winner or the person who did well that year was like, it was a video of a guy's foot and it was spinning, and then it flashed to him in a crouching position. It was in black and white, and the camera spun around him, and there was like weird noises in the background going, meh, 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 like a car backing up, but a human voice doing a truck backing up. And I was like, what the fuck is this happy horse shit right here? And he wrote beautifully about it. Like he was like, this is a representation of my childhood trauma and the way I feel we live in a material. And it was like, wow. But he got the best grade. Now my mate was into an artist, I think he's English or Australian, called Simon Bisley. He was big into comics and he was brilliant. He was a brilliant artist, but big into comics and comic book styles, particularly Simon Bisley. And he got like a D, because they were like, no, you can't just do comics. And I was like, why not? Like, what are you grading him on? Look at how skillful he is. He's as good as the illustrators who are working for a living, who were working for DC, Marvel, 2008, 2000 AD. But he couldn't say anything about it. He just they'd be like, why did you draw this character chopping another character's face in half? And he'd be like, because I thought it was cool. And he didn't say anything about it. So you should always, like, if you have a tattoo, you should have a really awesome story about the tattoo, like, and why you got it. And Anna Louisa says, the question is, why would the unconscious think you're now ready to take the pain repressed in childhood when you feel like you can't? What's a theory for the disconnect? It sounds like you have a couple of presuppositions in the question, but it's a good question, and I intuit that it's going to lead us to a good place. Why would the unconscious think that you're now ready to take the pain repressed in childhood when you feel like you can't? What do you mean? Where's that question coming from? What's a theory for the disconnect? What's the disconnect? You're going to need to write down more words there. You say that the unconscious, you're talking as though the unconscious feels you're ready for pain, but you're not. Why do you think that? Richard, do you think narc abusing groups are cult-like? When you try to leave, you're shunned, then smear campaign issues? Do I think narcissistic abuse groups? You wrote narc abuse in groups are cult-like. I mean, I don't get involved in online groups, and I won't run them. People ask me to run forums. I'm like, no. It brings out, every single time they implode, it brings out the worst in people. It attracts all the wrong types, and it's just not good. So I just like, nah, I'm not doing that. It's depressing to watch it happen as well. How to cast a spell. You know, if it's a good spell, for the highest good. Make sure that when you design your spell, that you say, it's like multiple caveats in a legal document. If you're going to get into a legally binding contract with somebody, only if it's for the highest good of all concerned, only if it serves the greater good, only if it's for the best for me, only if this is part of what I am supposed to experience in my manifestation on this planet. That would be how I would do it. Honu is the Hawaiian green sea turtle. Very pretty. Oh, thank you. Lovely. Jenny says, people just easily diagnosing other people is very negative. If you're talking about narcissistic abuse groups online, I just please stay away from them, and please be careful. Please be careful talking to people online. Just because somebody says that they have CPTSD, just because somebody says they're a victim of narcissistic abuse, doesn't mean it's true. They can seem lovely. I've had this done to me so many times. I've even had it where nothing went wrong for 6 to 9 months, and then you're like, "Oh, wowie, this is a right thingy." So yeah, I just don't do it. Just my advice would be to stay away from it. Reese. I'm working on emotional literacy exercises and I keep getting a physical laughing-like feeling bubbling up in my stomach. Not sure if it's laughter or grieving trying to burst out. Any guidance? Yes. Do emotional literacy on it. Write down. So write down the physical sensations rather than just the emotions. Write down exactly what the physical sensations are. Then put a circle around them. Then do a little branch and go, what is this like? What does this feel like? Oh, it's like the excitement before I get on a roller coaster. Oh, it's like the excitement when I'm taking a girl on a first date and I really like her. Or the anxiety of seeing a doctor, or whatever it is. So the things that it's like. And then branching off from the physical sensations, get into the emotion. Am I scared? Am I nervous? Am I excited? Because a laughing like feeling bubbling in the stomach for me would be anticipation. This is gonna be cool. I'm looking forward to this. So I would, that's what I would do, is I would do an emotional literacy exercise on how you're responding to the emotional literacy exercise. Miss Susie Lee says, that's a creation story. Native American about the world and the turtle. There's a cute vid, but more than one here on YouTube. Just saying. Well, thank you, Susie, for just saying that. Olivios Art Studio. I think I spoke to you like 5 or 6 years ago. Yes, I'm an artist, and that's true. You do have to be able to. Oh, that you have to be able to write well about what you're saying. Yeah, you definitely do. You definitely do. And also, they don't like. Somebody else wrote. I think it was Zombie Marshmallow said art teachers don't like manga. They don't like comic book work. That's silly. That's really really silly. But seems you're right. Like Zombie Marshmallow and Olivos Art Studio, it seems to be true. It's a terrible shame. Terrible shame. Let me catch up with everyone. Dalma, life more, because you've not asked the question before. Where do you start when you have mostly passed? Where do you start when you have mostly past bad experiences with friendships and relationships? I don't trust myself nor anyone else. Where to start? I mean, if in your whole life you only had unstable or mostly unstable, unsafe connections with other human beings, then it sounds like usually that would have been the result of some pretty intense trauma. So there's a chance that I would suspect that. I'm not diagnosing you. It's just based on what you said to me that you're highly emotionally dysregulated. So I would seek to deal with the emotional dysregulation first. That means you will be attracted to making friends with better people and more capable of establishing and maintaining a healthy relationship with good boundaries. Cheers from Ohio, says JJM1. Richard, what is your thoughts? What are your thoughts about this question? Please, can a narcissist change the behavior in a truthful way? I don't know what changing your behavior in a truthful way means. You'd have to rephrase that. I don't think that expression means, it might mean something to you, but I don't know what it means. Can a narcissist change their behavior in a truthful way? Could you please rephrase the question for me? Thank you. I was going to ask good ways for dyslexic people when writing has a literal breakdown disconnect. If you are struggling with dyslexia, the emotional literacy exercises are going to take a little bit more time, a little bit more patience, and a lot more self-compassion. The emotional flashbacks are going to be critical. So do the emotional flashbacks exercise, work it with discipline for a month before attempting an emotional literacy exercise. The emotional flashbacks exercise short circuits the dyslexia. Dyslexia doesn't, it won't make any difference. Nikki says, my time in those groups, the narcissistic abuse groups, went from interest for knowledge to gently sharing possible solutions to feeling like the negativity of the group was no longer sustaining my need for help and knowledge. Yeah, I spoke to somebody years ago who said that there was a theory, she knows way more about counseling than me. She said there was a theory going around that actually the internet and online forums become like a black hole for the unconscious into which negative emotion is kind of drawn in. And I've never been in a group that I was impressed with. They're always so negative. And it just becomes like this big whinge fest. I'm like, this is not helpful. We're not challenging each other. We're not supporting each other. We're not moving each other forward. People are just dumping. They're just offloading. And then you read that and then you consume it. And it's like, ugh, it's gross. What do you think about the narcissistic personality reading The Power of Now? I'm sure that they would find a way to lord over you. The fact that they read The Power of Now and that they were more in the moment than you were, I think. Chloe, in therapy, when you get to the icky bits, sticky icky, where you acted out of character during traumatic times, how do you stop the fear of being a bad person? Pass. The only way through the yucky, just to feel it. Yucky and icky. Listen, we do horrible things sometimes when we're in a bad state. People in bad states make bad decisions. Anybody can be driven to acting out of character, anybody. And it's a human thing. It's not icky. It's not yucky. It's just what we are. It's just the essence of what we are. It's why we need civilization. It's why we need morals. It's why we need a moral philosophy. We're not that long down from the trees. So we're not that long down from being in a state where we're ready to mash an enemy's head in. And civilization, as you know it, is only 2 or 3 days away from being turned completely on its head. My current hypothesis is that any one of us is only 3 days away from full psychopathic personality disorder. If what happened in the siege of Sarajevo happened in your city, in my country, in your country, we were caught in the worst elements of that experience, the worst elements. Within 3 days of trauma, suffering, and starvation, you would effectively develop a psychopathic mindset in order to survive, because that's what a psychopathic, narcissistic, borderline mindset is. It's a PTSD response to trauma. It's a survival mindset. We are not the opposite of icky and yucky. You're not sugar sweet. You're not a candy cane. You're not a cupcake. You're a human being. I can teach you how to gouge somebody's eyes out. I can teach you how to bite somebody's nose off. And there are situations in which that is both ethically and legally justifiable. And if you didn't do it, I'd be very disappointed with you. Doesn't take much imagination to see what those situations could be. Don't think of yourself as being a cutesy little bunny, and then you won't have to feel this weird, incongruent, like, oh, you know, I was a real piece of shit that day. I was really arrogant. I was really rude. I was really aggressive. You're a human under stress, and that's how you responded. And if you can say sorry to the people who are affected by that, then do it. Then do so. If you can make amends, then absolutely do so. But don't agonize over it. It's not special. It's not unique. Everybody's done it. Everybody's been there. And don't hold yourself to a higher standard than the rest of humanity. You're a human being, same as the rest of us. And that's what can happen when things go badly wrong, when people are traumatized. Draga Veskovic. I'm sorry, I said it like that. Was that correct? It must be Veskovic, right? I keep getting my focus away from myself, externalized locus of control, to analyzing the abuser in situations, mentalization, seeking to avoid emotional experiencing, externalized locus of control, and intellectualizing, 1, 2. And then to the point of completely blaming myself, toxic guilt, toxic shame, fawn responder, for their narcissistic traits, thinking I might be the BPD. Do I have any advice? Yes. You have a very pronounced fawning guilt response, probably from a perfectionistic and demanding mother who shattered your boundaries. That's typically what would leave a woman in this state. You totally externalized your locus of control, probably because of the trauma of what you went through in childhood, where you weren't allowed to be assertive. And what you experienced was so goddamn awful that if you felt your feelings, you would have completely fallen apart. So now you intellectualize. So you're like me, you're in good company. You're like many of the people watching this right now. You are a classic fawning codependent. So what is my advice? Well, I have courses on it, but I would treat this as though it were CPTSD. Just say, okay, I'm a codependent fawn responder. So I have weak boundaries and I have one modality of responding to pressure, which is fawning. I have CPTSD. How should I handle that? And then move forward treating the CPTSD. You can do it the way I do it with my courses. I have the Heal the Superego course, which is a good all-in-one course to start with. Or you can go with other people. There's other people doing courses. There's books, there's videos on CPTSD, but treat this as CPTSD because that's what it is. Truth Seeker says, I resent being forced into yang all the time as a woman. Yang is the typically associated with masculinity. Do you mean yin? Or do you mean you're being forced to act like a man all the time as a woman? Are you being forced to act in a stereotypically feminine way that you're not comfortable with, or a stereotypically masculine way that you're not comfortable with? Both is bad, and both happens to both men and women. There is a particular problem right now with women being forced, coerced, propagandized into acting like men, which is exhausting for them and irritating for them. Measure Twice says, wonderful answer to Chloe's question about the icky. Thank you. Domo arigato. Question. How do you really feel about me? Is it normal? I should take this more seriously. Is it normal to not trust the family of origin after narcissistic abuse? i.e. going no contact for good with all the family? Are you saying that you experienced narcissistic abuse at the hands of your family or at the hands of somebody else? I would need, that's important. El Duan. Hi all. Richard, do you provide personal coaching for specific situations? I no longer do one-to-one coaching. I apologize for that. Sisyphean capitalist. The past framed, the process revealed, and the emotions processed. I'm left with the blah. It's a neutral state, neither negative nor positive. How to get out of this flat state of nothingness. I don't do ASMR, but I will if you make me. Did you really process the emotions, or are you the type of person who speeds through things that they find uncomfortable, that negates their own needs for the needs of others? And you're just telling me and telling yourself, oh, I've done it. I've already handled all this. And now there's nothingness. There's this emptiness there. Because one explanation for the empty feeling is that it's this pattern of behavior of just going, oh, it's finished. I've dealt with it now. That's what is causing the emptiness. The emptiness is not that far away from depression, by the way, possibly because you're not acknowledging where you still feel angry or where you still feel sad. If we suppress anger, we suppress sadness, we end up flatlining with our feelings of becoming depressed. Believe me, Richie knows all about that. Oh, depression. There you are. I seem to not be able to move. Depression has taken over this city. Gotham, we are depressed. Sean says, fawning codependent, welcome to the party. Welcome to the party, Draga Veskovich. Marianne says, isn't there a connection between high potential people and CPTSR? Not that I'm aware of. As a repeated trauma urge to find solutions from a very young age, as repeated trauma urges us to find solutions from a very young age, and emotional intelligence would then develop accordingly. Not that I'm aware of, but I think you're the second person who's commented something to that effect in the last couple of days. I don't know enough about it. I still haven't read Alice Miller's drama of the gifted child, along with Bessel van der Kolk's Body Keeps Score and Gabor Mate's When the Body Says No. These are things that I should have read by now and I haven't. I'm open to the idea, but I don't know anything about it. I apologize for not being a good source on that one. Can you explain fawning, please? Yes. Fawning as a biological response to a threat. A threat appears. We can fight it. We can smash it in the face. We can flight it. We can run away. We can freeze if you keep really still and hope that the predator only has movement activated vision. And if you keep still, that you'll disappear into the background and it'll leave you alone. Or you can fawn. So the only fawn response I can think of from biology that's useful is when you grab a chameleon and its tail drops off. So it goes, eat that, not me. So you trade off. You go, okay, what can I give the monster so they're not totally destroyed? How do I, it's a fawning, supplicatory response. You supplicate. How can I best detect who's being honest? Seems a lot of people is lying nowadays. I'm getting tired of humanity soon. If you are emotionally literate, your intuition will protect you on that one. Don't forego the need to have a strong intuitive sense when you're interacting with others. Matt says, unfortunately, my yang moments often are triggered from the CPTSR. Yeah, I mean, if you're acting in a compensatory yang way, that's something that needs to be looked at. You're like, okay, this is not cool, kind of being a dick. I've been there. And really, that's probably what led me along, really historically, along this path. I only do this because I spent years in the British education system. And I only spent years in the British education system because I had to be a taxi driver. And I only had to be a taxi driver because I lost my LA privileges from doing nightclub security in Liverpool, which I'd done for years. But one day, like my compensatory yang behavior, my lust and desire for the buzz and the thrill of violence mixed with, alcohol and cocaine eventually caught up with me. And I got myself into a lot of trouble. I'm really lucky that I didn't end up in jail. So lucky that I didn't end up in prison. Very lucky that I didn't end up getting shot. And that led me to here, because then I was a taxi driver And all I could do whilst I was a taxi driver, bored out of my brains, was listen to tapes, revealing my age now, like personal development tapes, because I'd lost my connection with psychology. I'd lost my connection with spirituality and personal development. And then I had a friend who was into personal development, and he was teaching kids in school. And he said, do you want to teach kids in school? And I went, no, that sounds shit. And he said, try it. So I tried it, and I hated it, and I wasn't good at it. And then I tried it again, and it worked a little bit better. And then I was like, I'm going to figure out how to get these kids to listen to me. And then that's what started all of this. I can only talk long form because I trained, like I had my psychology degree. I'd done the work for the probation service, and I had my NLP training, and I'd done the self-defense teaching as well. So I would video myself talking, and then I would talk on a subject that they wanted me to cover. I'd video it, and I'd go back, erase the tape, again, revealing my age, and then do the talk again for another 20 minutes and try and eradicate anything that was boring and try to be as compelling as possible again and again and again. Then I went to the schools. I got really, really good at it. So we were granted work on feedback from the students and from the teachers. And as my feedback went up, my workload went up. So I got to the point where I was doing like 5 or 6 days a week on different places all around the different schools all around the United Kingdom, doing 6-hour-long seminars. Well, longer, with breaks. I'd work from 9 o'clock in the morning until 4 o'clock in the afternoon with your school break. So that gave me the ability to go blah, 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 and speak. So everything has its time and everything has its place. And things that seem messed up, they are messed up. It's bad. We should not have those things. We shouldn't have violence. We shouldn't have, people with brains who really just want to help. Like I was a sweet kid. I was too sweet. Like people were like, what's wrong with this kid? He's really sensitive. He doesn't want to play with the other kids because he's frightened of competing and winning and hurting their feelings. That was me. And by the time I was 25, my favorite thing was to go on the door as a nightclub bouncer, snort coke, and then just smash the fuck out of people. I loved it. I thought that was really good. I thought that was a really jolly fun time. my school friends were like, what are you doing? One of my teachers from school, who was the teacher who put me forward to go to Cambridge, saw me on the door one night. He went berserk. He went absolutely berserk. He saw me on the door of a nightclub. He's like, Grannon, what are you doing? I was like, oh, shit. Teachers caught me. Oh no, sorry, sir. I was like a thug Harry Potter out there. So yeah. Got to balance that yin and that yang, man. And you've got to process the trauma, because unprocessed trauma rots inside of us and can lead you to make very, very seriously bad decisions that can have wide-ranging karmic impacts. I, in another reality, probably went to jail for about 7 years. Then when I came out in that reality, I would have just been a gangster. I would have just been a criminal for life. But I didn't. Thank God I didn't. That didn't happen. I was given a chance. I was given another chance. And which is why, even though I hated working in the schools, I in my own religious upbringing way, I was like, this is penance. I hate this, but this is, go into the schools and talk to these brats and tell them to stop stabbing each other and do some work. I did it for years and years, and, really tried to just be as inspiring as I could. And, eventually I got to like it. Eventually it became a good laugh. Like I had a thing that I would do. I mastered it. So they'd be like, this is the worst class you've ever seen. That kid has stabbed somebody. That kid, his mum is this one. Just be careful. And by the end of the day, I'd be there. They'd be eating out of the palms of my hands. I'd go, no, I can't. I cannot stay. I must go. And they'd be like, oh, we want you to stay. So I mastered that. But, you know, I realized that I figured it out. That's what I do. I'm a figure outer, is that what they wanted, what those kids really, really, really wanted, and what nobody would give them is guidance. They wanted guidance. They wanted guidance. They needed somebody to tell them, the world is fucked up. You're okay, but you can't do this, because if you do this, then you'll be a fucking idiot. You don't want to be a fucking idiot, do you? No. And that's it. That's where it all started. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I will stop there. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Oh, if you liked my mic, there's a better sound quality, right? Can you say in the comments, I'm getting a stand for this tomorrow, and then the ASMR work begins. Spartan Life Coach, thanks for tuning in. Speak to you soon.